All right. So what I wanted to talk about is custom objects.
Yeah.
And I know that a lot of people have had their kind of differences of opinions with custom objects and what they do. So tell me from your perspective, and we'll kind of go back and forth, like what is a custom object ultimately?
Ultimately, the thing that a custom object is in high level is an object that we as the agency get to define for our client. So it's a data construct that we can define the particular parameters of, and thus are able to refine the way the software works in specific application for what our client needs it to do.
So what would be like the best
Big,
example? Yeah,
yeah.
what's the best example of a custom object?
So I think the most obvious example, the one that's easiest to wrap your head around, is actually a child. So the parent-child relationship. If the client is a school, a martial arts school, a music studio, those a dance studio, those kinds of things where it's extracurricular school stuff, the child never the child doesn't get notifications of when the bill is due. The child doesn't get notifications of when their classes are scheduled, when their appointments are scheduled. The parent is who's taking that child to their music lessons, to their dance lesson, to their horse riding lesson. So the object in this case, the 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 parent object, the default object is the contact, is the parent. The child is the custom object, the object on whom the action is being taken, but there's no communication. The child doesn't have their own email address and their own phone.
That's a really good point. So essentially what we're saying is that the parent would be the contact record
Mm-hmm.
and the opportunity would be a sale on the standpoint of the parent, but it's
Mm-hmm.
associated with the child object, which can be assigned to multiple parents. So, for
Yeah.
example, if I had two parents as contacts, I could bind them together with one child object.
Yes. And multiple child objects.
So let's take a look at that. Let me pull up my handy dandy demo account really quick. So bear with me 2 seconds. I'm just was setting up Santa Bot earlier, like I was telling you about. So for anyone who's watching, Santa Bot is GHL's new Santa hotline. So, and that's actually a really good segue, ironically, because what I can do is I can actually set up in here. I can go into custom objects and create an object. And that object is child, children, child's name, single line text field. They don't really have a lot of icons in here yet.
Yeah. Certainly we need an object that looks like an icon that looks like a person.
Yeah, so let's
There you
set
go.
up.
Something like that.
Yeah, right there. All right. And this is an object that describes the child in the relationship of parent to children.
Mhm.
So I'm going to create this custom object. And what I want to see is when I go into this custom object, I can do associations, right? So
Mhm.
tell me about associations and how, because I know like I've done associations before, but how would you typically relate an association? Because obviously we're going to relate it to the contact, and we have We can do a pair of labels, a single label, many, many to one. There's a bunch of different options in here. So what would you typically recommend someone do for like parent-child relationships?
This seems like the application where we have a pair of relationships where it's the child to the contact and the child parent. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or so we can put parent right
I
here.
think that high level allows us to put parent there. Yes.
Okay, cool. Let's take a look at that. And so we're going to save this. So it says a child associated to many contacts with label child. A contact can be associated to many children with label parent.
That
Okay.
seems like it describes, yeah.
Yeah, that seems right. So now one of the things that I want to see is okay, so now it does show up on my custom menu right here.
Yeah.
So I have
That's
contacts, calendars, conversations, opportunities, and now children. So I don't have any children, but I have a dog and her name is Harley Quinn. So let me just add her as a child. And now I have owners and followers and associations. So I can associate my contact as the parent to the child.
yeah.
So now when I go into Harley Quinn, if I go into associations, it shows me as the associated parent. And if I go into contacts and I go into Mario and I go into associations, I can see that they have a child. That's pretty cool. So
Yeah.
I think that's probably the most quintessential example of custom objects is, and I think you've explained it the best that I've heard so far, is the reason behind doing the child as the object in lieu of the parents. So Philip now, who is or Nagao, who is a coaching client of mine, was talking about his BJJ studios, Brazilian
Mhm.
Jiu-Jitsu studios. And one of the things we were discussing is, do you want the parent to be the object or the child to be the object? But you made a really good point earlier of children typically don't have a cell phone that you want to communicate with. They don't have an email you want to communicate with. So they really are the object in that case that's not being communicated to, but they are an object that's being communicated about. Does that
And
sound pretty accurate?
yeah. And I think that use of communicated to versus communicated about, that's a brilliant way to describe it, Mario. Um, I think you're right on target. That's the issue. You can't send an email to a car to tell it, hey, you need to come in for your appointment. You need to come and get your lube oil filter done.
Isn't
Right?
that like a Tesla feature though, right? Like you can
Okay.
email. I don't know. I'd have to ask Matt. I know Matt has a bunch of Teslas,
Point to it.
and I'll have to ask him because I've
Right.
actually never driven a Tesla before. I've only
Yeah.
ridden in one once as an Uber ride, and then
Uh-huh.
twice because Jose from the summit in Dallas let me ride in the Beast, and that was like the scariest thing I've ever done. That truck was so fast in
Oh
Beast
yeah.
mode. Yeah, it was pretty amazing. I digress.
Yes.
Anyways, so we have our child and parent operations. Now, one of the things that we were talking about earlier when I was talking to Philip was about the custom fields associated with that object.
Yeah.
So let's do drop down single. Let's do martial arts belt level. And let's just enter like some generic options.
Yeah.
I remember this is the correct order, depending on what
You,
discipline you're
you've
following.
got it better than me. So good enough. We'll
So,
call it good. We're gonna
Oh man.
associate.
So that's a
Oh,
bug. A
oh
bug.
yeah,
So that's something that you need to be very cognizant of before
yeah.
you create a custom field with a bunch of options. Is that if you switch the object, it does delete the options.
And so
So I
we got to start
wonder,
over.
yeah, I wonder if you, okay, so it doesn't do it if you switch the group. So let's do white, yellow, blue, red, brown, black.
JC Penney
All
297.
right. So,
It's I just aged myself, I
all
guess.
right. So now, no, it's all good, man. So now we have that martial arts belt level
Uh-huh.
right here under Harley Quinn. We
Yeah.
can select their level. So what can we, so what have you found? Have you tested at all the workflows with custom objects yet?
What what I ended up doing when I tried to make a workflow is I created the only the thing that was impressive is as soon as you started to create a workflow, you now have an option, child-based workflow. But near as I can tell, what the only thing that I was able to do so far was a circular workflow where it was triggered by object created and or updated, and now you can update it. And it's like, well, then that doesn't make sense. So child created, child changed. Mine was property created, property changed. Um, but maybe it's because I didn't build a field. Change to, yeah. So okay. Um,
Now,
now,
what can I do? So, okay, so we have created child or associate record, update child or associated record. So, what does this do from an associated record standpoint? So, I can actually update the contact. So, I can say all associated contacts, and I want to, can I edit the tags? No, I can't.
yeah. See,
But I
because
could update a custom field.
what I think we would want to do in this case is we would what we would want to do is send an congratulations email to the parent.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking too. And so let's do that. So we're going to call this child level up on belt. And we're
Sure.
going to save this workflow and just publish it for temporary purposes. And
Mm-hmm.
let's actually duplicate this tab because I think this is a really good use case. And I know Philip is going to watch this in the morning and be like astounded because we're literally solving his problem. But one of the things you can't do currently is do anything with tags or anything like that. So GHL needs to add that. Now I could webhook it out, webhook it back in. There's a bunch of like workarounds I can think of,
Mm-hmm.
but I think the easiest thing to do would be to just do like a radio select field and call that belt level up and just do yes and no. And let's treat
Yeah.
this like a tag essentially.
And is this, are you wanting this to be the contact?
Yeah, because
Okay.
so yeah, the reason being is that if I do the child levels up on belt, so we've done this, the child's martial arts belt has changed to yellow. Let's do another trigger, child change and martial arts belt level has changed to, let's do blue. So we'll just edit these really quick
Mm-hmm.
because white is typically the first belt in most disciplines that you start
Uh-huh.
with, white or yellow.
Uh-huh.
So what we're going to do is we've now saved this. So now this is something that wasn't here earlier today or wasn't
Yeah,
here yesterday.
yeah,
When I was
that's
testing, it was the associated record part.
mm-hmm.
So now what I could do is say change the contact, all associated contacts to belt leveled up, yes. and then have another workflow. So I'd have another workflow come in that's a regular one and make that contact changed.
Nice.
Belt level up has changed to yes.
And good job with documenting your actions.
Yeah.
that's
I'm pretty particular about my documentation.
You've been around that block about 17 times.
Yeah, I
Whereas
learned from the best. I learned from Michael Pacito,
oh,
so
for sure.
I'm meticulous about documenting everything.
Yeah.
So now we could do something like we'll just do an internal notification to me on a text message or on a regular one and say so we don't have that available yet with the child relationship in here. So that's
Yeah.
something, that's another limitation. But what you could do is just put in congratulations, your child has leveled up a belt in our BJ program.
Mm-hmm.
Just do a simple notification like that. Select the redirect page, go to the contact, user type, all users. That really doesn't matter.
Not for this test purposes.
Yeah. So let's save this and call this parent.
Yeah, but now you're because you use that radio button action, now you've fired this workflow, which is a normal workflow on a normal contact who you would have email address for and things like that. So you can
Right.
actually take those normal kinds of actions that we're used to.
And then what I could do is I could even add like a wait step in here, and let's call this just, 0.5 seconds or 0.5 minutes. So
half a minute.
yeah, half a minute. And then I could update that child's record or clear that field of that child's record, martial arts belt level, save that so that every time they level up, it would trigger that workflow to send that notification to that parent.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's useful.
So tell me about how you would use it from a property standpoint. Like what would you, I know you mentioned earlier that your background's kind of in real estate.
Yeah.
And you know a lot about like real estate transactions and property. So tell me, how do you use it from a property standpoint and why?
Well, the one I was using as an example that I was shooting my own introduction to workflow, introduction to custom objects was the lawn care company. I have a sandbox account that's a roofing slash lawn care company. And I was trying to figure out how you send a notification to the property owner when it's time for them to have a servicing. And you just solved the problem that I ran into. The thing that I think you're going to want with the critical thing about a real estate property transaction is you've got 6 people involved. You've got a lot of people that are involved in that transaction, and the transaction is happening to a physical property, but all of the and you don't talk, nobody talks to the property, all the people talk to people. And so notification to the loan officer, notification to the underwriter, notification to the insurance, and then the insurance person coming back and saying, yes, we've got a quote, we're good. The home inspector, all of those different people, all of those different steps in that real estate transaction. And you have this object that for none of the professional, for the property owner, it's the only real estate transaction they have going on right now. But for all the professionals that are in that industry, if they only have one going on at a time, then they're not making any money. They're they're not succeeding very much as in that industry, right? So to have the property listed as a custom field inside their contact record means you have to have an infinite number of fields, and clearly no one's going to. You can't build that.
Whereas with objects, you can have as many object associations as you want. So a real estate agent may be associated with, let's say, 10 different properties, and the association of that property also can be associated with contacts from different insurance agencies, different buyers, different sellers, like all those different things as well.
The home inspector, the handyman. Because the home inspector's saying, hey, here's my 3 handymen that you should call to fix this problem I found before the sale can go through. All of those people have to get involved, and for none of them except the buyer and the seller, each of them has multiple properties that they're dealing with at any given in a week, let alone in a month or 6 month business cycle.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Absolutely. Yeah. So, okay. So we covered a lot about custom objects. While I have you on the call, Keith, one of the things that I talk a lot about, and I know this is going to be like you beating a dead horse because we've talked about this pretty at length, but one of the things I talk about with a lot of my coaching clients is joining BNI. And so total topic pivot, we've closed out custom objects. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate it. But while I have you on the call, I just want to talk a little bit about your experience with BNI, Business Networking International, and how it's made a difference in your life. And then also, what would you recommend? Like, I see tons of SaaSpreneurs posting on the Facebook page. How do I get my first lead? How do I get my first sale? One of my requirements for my coaching program is you have to join BNI.
Okay, you actually make it a requirement, explicit requirement.
Explicit requirement is you have to join. So like Bonnie and everybody else, Nick, everyone in my coaching program has joined BNI and they're loving it. But I want to hear from you, like, how did you find success with BNI? Because you're, from what I understand, a pretty big BNI guy, and you understand kind of how the sauce works. So tell me a little bit about that.
Thank you, Mario. That's really, really kind of you to keep track of that and to give me the chance to get on my soapbox just a little bit.
Hey, please, by all means, soapbox it up.
So truth in advertising, truth in my story, I'm not currently a member of BNI. So that's the caveat to the point to the headline I'm about to give you. And that's simply because the way my business is moving right now, that early morning meeting a county away is excessive time commitment.
Yeah, absolutely.
For me personally right now. But the headline is, I don't even know how to be in business and not be in BNI. My path out of the Army and into the business world.
Thank you for your service, by the way.
And thank you for yours. I know we have a little bit of shared history that way. Another thing that we have shared history. Even when I'm not in BNI, what BNI teaches is a systemic approach to in-person networking. So if you're not doing in-person networking, it doesn't mean you're not doing networking. You're doing networking like we're doing right now. It's all in a Facebook group and comments and having conversations and building a relationship and saying, hey, do you want to have this you want to, I don't have I don't have my visual aid as my coffee cup, right? Like, you want to sit on Zoom and have coffee and have a conversation about each other, right? Thank you for, you got me covered. Because you don't build relationships with sales pitches. You
It's
build
true.
relationships with conversations. And so many people in especially in digital networking, in social media networking, they don't realize that's what it is. They think they think they're doing promotion, they think they're doing advertising, and they're just pitching. They're not building understanding of who that other person is and that other person's needs, wants, desires. Um, and so the thing that BNI gives is a structure that says you show up at the meeting, you have an initial conversation, and the whole point of the meeting isn't to make the connection. The point of the meeting is to have a connection so that you can follow it up with an in-depth one-to-one where you build a relationship.
Yep.
Okay. And then I take, and then I say, and so let's take that same model and apply it to our online relationships. What online gives us is the ability to defeat the tyranny of distance, because you and I can do this meeting with 30 seconds notice, and
Literally.
okay, let's jump on Zoom and have a conversation. But the processes are the same, the systems are the same. Those are the leading indicators of your business success. The business lagging indicators is, are you generating profit? The leading indicators are the things you're doing on a routine basis that are leading you to that place of profit. Having conversations with people is the leading indicator. That's the thing you have control of, you can track. So having said all of that, this is my soapbox, Mario. We have had this kind of conversation digitally, and now in a virtual one-to-one conversation on a recording for posterity, for our respective audiences to hear. Here's my recommendation to people who have never been to BNI. And I'm going to frame it differently for this conversation than I ever have before. Go to BNI to learn what that system looks like, whether you join or not, because you can look at what they're doing, observe that pattern of behavior, and if you want to do all of your networking online, okay, that's fine. But now you've seen this in-person version and how they're make this play out. Now take that and instead of making your social media post being about, can I get somebody to buy my thing, make your social media post about, can I attract enough attention that somebody asks me about my thing.
I love that. And I think that's like one of the biggest things that I learned. And I was in BNI for, oh gosh, like 5 years. I too am no longer a member. I don't drive. So for me, it's really hard to attend a meeting. But back when I was driving and attending meetings, and I feel like we're talking about like going to like Alcoholics Anonymous, right? But like,
it's a little bit of a cult, actually.
It is. It really is.
And there's a lot of people that are turned off by it because of that. But that doesn't mean there's not value to learn from it.
Because what you're learning is, at the end of the day, just like you said, I think you phrased it perfectly. It's a framework for networking and being a professional. And it's because you're right. Like, so many people are out there pushing ads. Like, I had a customer who wanted to run an ad that was like, buy my product, buy my product, buy my product. And I said, how about we actually run an ad that says, don't buy your product? I'm like, what are you talking about? And I said, yeah, we're going to run an ad that says, don't buy your product if you're not ready for it. But if you're ready for it, let's have a conversation. Here are the qualifications for what a good fit looks like. And I think what BNI really helped me to understand was that I needed to stop selling. I needed to stop getting out there, because when you go to your chapter, and for those of you who've never been to BNI, each chapter is comprised of membership that is unique to that chapter. So you have one plumber, one electrician, one digital marketer, one insurance agent, one commercial insurance agent, one realtor, one flooring guy, all these different things, right? And so many people walk in thinking, well, I'm just going to sell to everybody in the group. And one of the things that I coach people on is you're not selling to people in the group. And that's your first mistake. You're using this like the Toastmasters of business, right? So Toastmasters teaches you how to publicly speak, how to not be afraid, how to stop using how to stop saying so. They provide critiques and feedback on your conversational and public speaking components. And BNI does just that for your business. It really teaches you be how to be forward with your needs without being salesy in nature.
Mm-hmm.
And it teaches you how to ask people the right questions, how to listen. And that's one of the things I loved about one to one. And one of the things I love about, like this one to one with you and I is we're having the opportunity to just have a casual conversation, and we're not like, I'm not trying to sell you custom objects, you're not trying to sell me real estate transactions or lawn care services. We're just learning about what we talk about.
Mm-hmm.
And by proxy, what happens is they end up understanding the value you can provide,
Mm-hmm.
and then they in turn speak that gospel to other people about
Mm-hmm.
the value you can provide. Because
Mm-hmm.
someone may say, hey man, I'm really struggling with leads right now and I'm just not getting any business. And we start talking about like, well, what kind of operation do you have? Oh, you have a Brazilian jiu-jitsu studio. Like I just saw this chat, or I just had this chat on BJJ Studios, and how you can associate parents to children and do all these different things in this really fancy marketing CRM. And at that point, you just created a sales rep for you,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? And one of the things that I think you really hit on well previously was visiting different chapters.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got about 15 minutes left before my lady friend is going to kill me for staying up on Zoom. But
Uh,
tell me about your experience visiting different chapters and what are your recommendations?
okay. So part of it is, here's the caveat for this part, and I appreciate you letting me get on a soapbox about one of my pet projects. Um, the caveat for me personally is I'm so well known in the BNI, in the local BNI world, both BNI Northwest and BNI Pacific, which is the north of me is BNI Northwest, and to the south and west of me is Pacific BNI Pacific Northwest. And I'm so well known in that community that I can't visit a chapter and not already know somebody in that chapter. Um, so what I'm about to say, I can't, I can follow the model, but I'm not actually practicing it the way I'm suggesting it. Is that fair?
Okay. Yeah, that's
Okay.
fair.
So
100%.
here's my recommendation to someone who's new to business, doesn't know how to present their pitch on social media, and wants to have a conversation face to face with somebody so they can watch the eyebrow test. Did that pitch trigger the eyebrow test? Did I say something that caused that person, I'm trying to exaggerate it because my glasses are on right now, that caused that person to react? That's interesting, because if you can get somebody across the table from you to react like that, now go right. That's what you need to go right in your social media post, right? But
I love that.
you have to be sitting across. I got it from I got it from Dr. Meisner. I got it from BNI. Is where I got the concept of the eyebrow test. So that we're talking about BNI, we're talking about BNI. So that's what you're for your business. That's why you're going to BNI. You're
Hmm.
going to learn how what you're saying is working with that person. the reason BNI works so well for you to use it as a focus group, as a test of how to say things, is they expect you to be there. They expect you to pitch. And they expect, as soon as you tell them, if you were to walk into a BNI chapter and say, I've been in business for 10 years and I'm just going to try out BNI now, they're going to expect a different level of polish than if you walk in and say, I'm brand new in business. I heard about BNI. And here's the pitch here's the approach I would recommend to anyone who's brand new in business and has never been to BNI. Don't walk in and try to pitch. Walk in and say, some character named Keith and Mario told me that I should go to BNI, and I'm just trying to figure out whether BNI would work for my business. Because you're playing into their expectations. Every single chapter is trying to grow the number of members because there's an exponential financial increase. A chapter that's under 20 people is a viable chapter, but it's not a strong, healthy chapter. A chapter that's under 10 people isn't even healthy.
Right.
When somewhere around 24 members, chapters start getting really strong. There's enough different connections going on that everyone's then rising tides lifts all ships. When the chapter's down around 12 or 15 people, there's a couple of people who are doing really well, and then there's a whole bunch of people in the room. There's 6 or 10 people in the room that aren't doing well.
Right.
When you get over that 20 people in the chapter mark, the number of people that are struggling are known, and the ones that are doing well are like, how do I wrap my arms around you and help you? Because they're the minority, and the rising tide is rising. So the chapters want members. I'm digressing from my point, and I apologize.
No, you're fine. You're fine. I appreciate the honesty.
Yeah, but the point as a visitor is you're playing into their expectation. They want visitors, and they love BNI, and they want to tell you about BNI. And oh, by the way, they're going to try to pitch you their business, right? So you go in and you play to that expectation. They want you to join, but you don't know if you should join. Just because Keith says you should join doesn't mean you should join. Right. Even if you're in Mario's coaching program and Mario says you must join, it doesn't mean you must join this chapter. It says you must join a chapter. So shopping the chapters and finding the chapter that's the right fit for you, not just from, is there a slot open for your business, but do you as a person resonate with enough of the other people in the room that you're not going to be an island in a room? You need to have connections with people. How do you build connections? You walk into the room, and instead of pitching your service, walk into the room and say, hey, I'm this new guy in business, and I'm trying to figure out if BNI would help me. Can you tell me how BNI works for your business?
I love that.
They're going to pitch you their business, and they're going to pitch, and as a marketer, you ask them enough questions, they're going to tell you where the holes in their marketing. And now 2 days later, 3 days later, you pick up the phone and say, hey, by the way, you were talking about this thing. Can we talk about how I might be able to help you with that thing? But don't do it in the moment. Wait, do the Columbo on them. Wait and call them back on that. But ask them, tell me about your business and tell me how BNI fits in your business. And they're going to tell you all the reasons that you should join. And in order for them to tell you why you should join, they have to ask you about your business. And so you say, yeah. So I do this reputation management thing. Or yeah, I do SEO. Or I have this amazing AI receptionist. So you don't have to pay for a full-time receptionist. You actually have somebody that works for you 24/7. And you never miss a single phone call, even though you're probably under a house because you're a home inspector all the time and you're missing all these phone calls and you're wrong in those phone calls. And you get the eyebrow test, and now you know you've got something.
I love that.
But the only time you tell them about your business is when they say, well, how do I know whether BNI can work for you unless you tell me what you do. Well, now they've asked you. Now instead of you pitching them, you're just answering their question to give them context so that they can tell you, so they can recruit you to their BNI chapter.
So really it's about walking in, and I think this is, literally gold nuggets coming out at 2 o'clock in the morning, Eastern time about
11 Pacific.
business, yeah, business and sales and talking to prospects, is that you're not pitching your services. And this is something that I've long coached people about, and I've had lots of success in the digital marketing world selling snow to Eskimos and websites to developers. Like, it's amazing. And I think the biggest thing that I found, and I totally agree with you, is it's not about pitching. And I think
Mhm.
that's what a lot of people are doing wrong. It's not how do I get my first client by selling them a service or offering them, I just tell them it's $97 or $297 or what have you. It's not about that. It's literally about walking in and saying, like, hey, my name's Mario. Like, tell me about what you do and tell me about your business. And I think that's what BNI teaches you, is how to
Mhm.
be a good listener
Mhm.
and how to take notes on what people need and
Mhm.
then get them to owe you favors. And in the process, you get more business.
Mhm.
Like, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but everything is a trade in some way, shape, or form, right?
Yeah, yeah.
In some capacity, everything's a trade.
Mhm.
And what you're doing is you're trading listening for the opportunity to get screen time with this person
Mhm.
and say, hey, like, maybe I have a solution that could help you with your problems. Like, I'm
Mhm.
not going to tell you about it right now because I want you to keep telling me about your problems. And I think one of the things that I learned really on early on in my one-to-ones was never walk in and just talk about yourself the entire time.
Mhm.
Like, walk in and just ask questions and just keep
Yeah.
asking and digging and just keep
Uh-huh.
digging and digging and digging, whether it's into their family life, respectfully, or if it's into their business
Mhm.
life and their
Mhm.
challenges and their struggles and the
Mhm.
things, because chances are if they were struggling with it 5 years ago, they're still struggling with it today. Right.
Mhm.
So you're asking all these questions, and what BNI really teaches you is about how to be a good listener and then how to be a good advocate for another person's business.
Mhm.
Right. Because, like, one of the things that I really enjoy, I hate getting presents and I hated getting referrals. Not that I was ever against getting referrals. I love money and I
The
love
the
business.
right. The business opportunity is great.
but but it always felt awkward to me for someone to be like, hey, I have an opportunity for you. Like, squirrely feeling. But tell
Uh-huh.
me more about, like, what's going on with you and how can I help you? Because I
Uh-huh.
love giving back to the community. I love, being the giver as opposed to the receiver. And I
Yes.
think what BNI really teaches you about givers gain is
Mhm.
that it's exactly that. If you give and you listen and you provide value, there will
Mhm.
be something that comes back your way, whether it's karma,
Mhm. Mhm.
opportunity, something like
Mhm.
that. So
Yeah.
this has been an amazing conversation. Thank you so much, Keith. I never expected that at 2 o'clock in the morning I'd hop on and we cover custom objects in BNI. But this was perfect. I've been trying to pin you down for a while. So I'm
I'm
glad we
very
got a chance to connect.
yeah, and I'm very glad that you said, can you do that right now? Because I immediately looked at my calendar and it's like, when am I gonna even offer him as a time slot, knowing that he's East Coast time, I'm West Coast time. My next 2 days are packed already. And Mario's like, I'm sending you my Zoom link right now. Why haven't you logged in yet? Okay, fine.
Yeah, man. No, I really appreciate it. I think, just to kind of summarize for everyone watching, what we talked about with custom objects and specifically the parent-child relationship, you don't email a child, you don't text a child, you don't communicate with them, but you do the parents, right? So
Mhm.
that makes the child the ideal object. the same way you don't email a house, you don't email your car, those
Mhm.
become ideal objects. So really an object is something that you're not communicating with, but you're communicating about. Would that be kind of a very
I
succinct way to put it?
I think that's a beautiful summary.
Yeah.
And you did a really good job of identifying a kind of field that you could put on the object database, the object criteria. What is it? The characteristics, right?
Yep. The belt.
Right. Using that field as a way to be able to turn around and trigger a workflow that then does send a conversational email to the contact. That was the thing I was struggling with. I hadn't figured out how to turn around and make something that happened to the object result in a conversation with the contact. So that was a brilliant step
Thanks.
forward that I hadn't wrapped my head around how I was going to accomplish that next part of the task.
Thanks. Yeah, I am known for coming up with unique solutions to strange problems. So finding and there is still a bunch of stuff you can do with webhooks and things like that
Right.
around and use like Zapier and stuff like that and kind of
Mhm.
run through a middleware. But I think the most succinct example is just changing a field in the contacts record that then fires something in a workflow for that contact specifically.
Mhm. Mhm.
So again, Keith, we're just up on time. I wanted to say thank you for being a part of this chat, brother. And I look forward to talking to you. And thank you again for all your support in the community. It really means a lot. I know that I'm not a high level admin. I'm not associated with high level
Mhm.
directly, but I am part of our unofficial community support team. And it
Mhm.
means the world that you're always commenting and trying to share your knowledge. So thank you, brother. And I will let you get back to your night.
All right.
See you later. Cheers.
God bless.